Why do Protestants only have 66 books in their Bible and not accept the other 7 books of the Deuterocanon or the Apocrypha like the Catholics do? Here's why. The Jews were in charge of the Old Testament because they were the original recipients, writers, and stewards of the texts now known as the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible. So what books did the Jews count as scripture before the church council stepped in? Let's break it down. The Hebrew Bible, also known as the Tanakh, was divided into 3 main sections. First, you have the Torah, which is the law. These are the first 5 books. Then you have the Nevi'im, which is the prophets. These are both prophetic and historical books. And then you have the Ketuvim, which are the writings. If you would like to look up exactly what is in that, go ahead. But these were the last ones to be accepted into the Jewish canon or the Old Testament. So the Hebrew Bible, as recognized in Jewish tradition, contained 24 books. These are the same as the Protestants' 39 books for Old Testament. They are just grouped differently and placed in a different order, but they have the same contents. So what about the Deuterocanon, or as the Protestants call it, the Apocrypha? These books were seen by the Jews, specifically the Greek-speaking Jews, as very useful for theology and history. However, they were not seen as spirit-breathed or equal to Scripture by most of the Jewish communities. They were simply good theological books, but written by men, just like you would read anything now from John Piper or R.C. Sproul or someone like that. The Septuagint is a Greek translation of the Hebrew Scriptures, created in Alexandria, Egypt, starting in the 3rd century BCE. This is primarily for the Greek-speaking Jews, most of whom no longer understood Hebrew. Over time, the Septuagint included both the books of the Hebrew canon and additional writings, now known as the Deuterocanon. After the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE, the Jewish leaders began formalizing their canon, solidifying what we now call the Tanakh. I want to state again that the Jewish community, the original stewards of these texts, did not accept the deuterocanonical books as scripture. They saw them as helpful but man-made writings, not a part of the Hebrew canon. So the Jews were in charge of the Old Testament, recognizing, copying, preserving their sacred texts. While the Catholic Church later canonized their Bible based off of the Septuagint, which included the Deuterocanon, Protestants like to go even further back and go to the original Hebrew canon as affirmed by the Jewish community itself. Since the Septuagint is a translation of the Hebrew, shouldn't we ask what the original Hebrew community itself considered scripture? They told us 24 books of the Tanakh. The rest are good, but not inspired.